Okay, we're here with Devon. He's been a great friend of ours and became a client too in the last year. He's an experienced investor now in Ontario with like a few duplexes and recently made a big splash in Detroit, purchasing his first property in the US. And we wanted to talk to Devon because he's such a great speaker and he articulates well. And I think he'd be able to give you a good message from the other side and how it's been to go through that process. So, first question, Devon, what was your biggest fear or hesitation before you pulled the trigger on the property? Like, what was there anything that almost stopped you at all?
Mm, good question. First of all, thank you, Paul, for uh, allowing me to be a part of the podcast. And I guess my biggest fear in pulling the trigger was I wasn't sure what I was going to be getting into. And I wanted my wife to kind of be on the journey with me because we've always thought about doing something in the States. And, first we're looking at Florida, HOA, all this kind of stuff. And the numbers were kind of high and it was just kind of seemingly out of our range. And when we heard, that you guys were going down to Detroit. And when we saw like, the numbers that you guys were showing, I said to my wife, I said, let's go check this out and kind of see where it leads to. And so there were reservations from a number of different things. Again, we weren't sure what we were going to get into.
Mm,
We weren't sure how it was going to work out between Canada and the US and what that looked like. So there was this whole trust factor and so on and so forth. And just wanting to see for ourselves. It's one thing to kind of hear things and seeing it on paper. It's another thing to go down there and immerse yourself and see what you're getting
absolutely.
yourself into. And I think that was the big thing for us that we heard it and we seen it on paper because literally, I wasn't at the presentation that you guys did, but I said to Josh, I need the video that you guys did. Send it to my wife and I so we can kind of, at least be a little bit more further ahead knowledge wise in getting down there. And so that was a big plus for us. And when we got there, we felt a little bit more at ease. And as we were asking questions and the gentleman was doing the tour guide and so on and talking with Josh, our minds kind of got a little bit more at peace, so to speak. So that we were grateful for that. But yeah, there was a big hesitation because we just didn't know what we were stepping into. We didn't
Yeah.
know about the taxation stuff. We weren't sure like can this be real in terms of the numbers 135 putting 37 down that I'm like I've never heard of that before.
Yeah,
Just
especially coming
getting
from Ontario.
well, and this is it, right? And also the thing about getting cash flow, and there's a whole bunch of things, man, that really appealed to us that was a little different from over here, and that's why we just had to go down and just see if this
Perfect.
was straight up, man.
So it sounds like, I mean, like a lot of people coming from Ontario to a place like Detroit, you almost didn't know what you didn't know. Like you had
Exactly.
this big shiny light here, like, hey, look at these crazy good numbers and cash flow, but it's like, okay,
Yeah.
what about everything else?
Yeah.
Right? So I think that's why we do the tour because it kind of sheds light on on all the corners, and it's almost
Absolutely.
like doing an inspection on the entire deal, right? So that's good for you.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Paul.
And just to touch on the structure part, you mentioned that. Like that's a huge question for all Canadians. I mean, we want to get our taxes straight and not have to pay any more than we already do.
Yeah.
And we're not going to get into crazy detail on that here, but we have a tried and true
Mm.
structure available for Canadians that they can plug and play. It's just
Yeah.
basically, hey, here's the lawyer,
Yeah.
he's got a good a program and structure there for you. Sign the papers, he's got you covered, he'll explain
Yeah.
it, and you're good to go.
Absolutely. And I mean, I was saying that we literally just got off the phone with him. And he was really low key. He just said, "Man, you got any questions? Don't hesitate to ask." I was asking him things like, "What are some things we need to be mindful of and look out for?" And he just
Mhm.
said, "Hey, this boom, 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 boom." He gave us some suggestions, which was very helpful. I mean, he listed off banks and a whole bunch of different things. And he said, "Hey, if you're ever in Detroit, give me a shout out. We can sit down, grab some lunch." So I really like that touchy-feely type stuff, even though it's sweet to be able to do things electronically. But I felt like he really was in our corner to kind of help us get through the different pieces that we didn't know and setting them up. and ask questions, not just questions that were pertaining to today. Like one of the questions we wanted to know is like, we got kids, they're grown. How do we add them to the mix? Those kinds of things. Or if we're looking forward to doing something in Florida, what does that look like? And he was grateful to say, hey, you know what? We'll go through each step. And there were different things, but it was just glad to know we had somebody that can give us the answers that we were looking for.
Yeah. Yeah, he's got our backs, and
True.
more importantly, the product and the system is fantastic. So that's good news.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I would concur with you on that.
So how about when you were down there, you guys made a decision pretty quickly. And some people will make decisions quickly, some people take their time. I'm a take my time kind of guy. I like to digest.
Right.
So I'm curious on your end, what was the turning point? Like what was the straw that broke the camel's back that helped you and Janice say, you know what, we got to do this and we got to make the decision now.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you know what? As I alluded to it earlier, we were looking for something in the States. It was more like Florida, and because the HOA was high and those kinds of things, and the numbers weren't really working, we had a little bit of cash that we were sitting on, and we wanted to do something, and we wanted to get into the market, but just didn't know where. So when you guys started talking about Detroit, that was a sweet spot for us to kind of look into. And I have to admit, when we went into the first place, I'm like, is this what we're going to be dealing with? Because I got to admit, when I walked in there, I'm like, how in the world is all this going to come together? Is what I was seeing. But then as the gentleman was talking, our tour guide was talking, he said, no, this is kind of like the rough thing. I wanted you guys to see. It's like when Josh took me on a tour. He wanted to show us the good, the bad, and the ugly kind of thing. And so he first took us into to something that needed a lot of aesthetical work and all of that kind of stuff. And he said,
Mhm.
this is kind of how we get it. This is what the price is, so on and so forth. And as we went through the whole process and visiting different places, like we got a feel of what the end result would look like, and I think that was a comfort for us when he started talking things about, I think he said A class, B class, those kinds of terminologies he was using
Yep.
for property classifications. I said, okay, so he brought us into those B class neighborhoods where it was mostly like, well maintained neighborhoods. The risk, violent crimes were like extremely low. And you can see that like a lot of the homes on the streets in the areas were really looked after and things of that nature. And that was really appealing to us. And so when we walked into one of the properties that we were looking at, and it didn't look like the first one that we went to. We knew that some aesthetical work needed to be done. But when they were talking and saying, hey, all of this stuff they would look after for us, and it was already in the price, and then you would get the before and after picture. So when we saw that, to me it was a no-brainer, for us to be able to jump in at such a low deposit amount. I mean, it wasn't like we're putting up 150,000, man,
No.
or 120,000. It wasn't as big as over here, but over there I said, you know what, let's jump in, let's see how it goes. We're dealing with cash flow, and that was the comfort zone. So I usually will wait to see what my wife says in terms of moving along, and if she's feeling the same vibe I'm feeling, then we're gonna go. So I think you remembered when we were walking around the side of one property, I said to you, I said, Paul, this one is ours.
Yeah, yeah, I remember. I do, yeah.
Because I already knew what was going on, and Josh looked over at me, and that's when my wife ran up to me and said, "We're going to take this prop." And I said, "Josh, what did I tell you?" Right? And so it was a no-brainer from when we saw that one, man. But again,
Well, keep going, Devon. Since you're at that point, tell us more about the. You don't have to give us all the details, but that specific property. Why did you like that one and the price or whatever it was that you liked about it?
well, you know what? It was the price was one thing. Again, it was like the 128 mark. It was a single family home. Because I think when we're looking at some things, they had single.
128,000 friends.
Correct, correct.
Yes.
On point, man. And at first, to be honest, I thought it was the 135 one because there were two of them on that strip. And I thought that one was the 135. But then no, when he sent us the document, it was like the 128. And I said, whoa, I said, all right, we're doing pretty good here already off the.
Yeah, yeah.
So I said we're doing really good. So the fact that it was 128, the fact that we only needed to put down a low down payment, those in a sense was like really sweet. And the fact that he showed us the rough numbers that we can be cash flowing at, I think it worked out to something like maybe 400 US, maybe 500 Canadian, somewhere give or take around there. But there were some nice things in between that really crystallized it for us. And one of those things was the fact that they were bringing in like a property manager, so they would actually get the place tenanted for us. We didn't have to worry about that. They were
Hmm.
collecting the rent. So I looked at it as passive income, right? It's more hands off. Yes, you're keeping in touch with what's going on, but I love the fact, even though Detroit is like a 4 hour drive down, I love the fact that, hey, you have another extension arm, if I could put it that way, who's going to help look after that for you. And I think that was
Absolutely.
another one of the selling features, big for me and my wife in regards to that. So, and it was just kind of all under one umbrella, so to speak. So everybody kind of know everybody in terms of what needed to be done in terms of property managers and all those
Hmm.
kinds of pieces. So
Yeah,
it was really a no-brainer for us. Price, cash flow. You have a team that's working with you, and they're able to get because I think that's probably one of the weakest parts for us is finding good tenants. You kind of have to learn that and go through all of that stuff. But down there, that's a different sandbox altogether. And when they're talking about like Section 8 tenants, but good Section 8 tenants, those are things that I'm not too familiar with. So I'd rather put people who have the expertise in that area. But
absolutely.
yeah, to know what the good fit is and who would the right tenants be in that. So that was a nice selling feature for myself and my wife.
Yeah. And I mean it's the way I see it is you're in those situations, those relationships, you're in it together because
Yes,
they're motivated to get you a good tenant because if they don't, you're both going to suffer. And if it's a good
absolutely.
tenant, you're both
Yeah,
going to win, right? And I
yeah,
like
yeah.
that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think when we went to visit, there was one property that we went to visit. It was like the $80,000 dollar one, where that one was more of a cash, cash you have to come up with straight up. But what he was saying is that he had a tenant in there for the last, I think he had it for 10 years, but the client was been in there for several years, right? And so those are the kind of clientels you want, right? The ones that's going to hang around
Absolutely.
for several years and look after your property. And again, when he showed us it was well maintained and everything on that strip. The area was nice. And I said, well, this is good. So I'm looking forward to that kind of clientele.
So last couple things, just to describe the property a little bit. So we're talking single family home,
Yes.
and that was the 1.5 story? Am I
Yes.
correct? It was a four
Yeah.
four
Yeah.
four four bedroom.
3 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, I think it was. And then the downstairs. Again, basement is unfinished, but I'm learning that in Detroit, it's not like us here where we rent out basement and we have that two-level there. It's a completely different thing
Yeah,
altogether.
yeah, different story.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
so 3 bedroom, 1 bath,
Yes.
128 grand, and you're probably cash flowing 400 US. Not a bad
Yes.
deal.
Yes, exactly is
So
what he was saying.
any advice to somebody kind of on the fence looking into this, not sure what to do? Just your own personal advice from your experience so far.
Well, you know what? My thing is find somebody who's got a roadmap, a good track record, and are able to give you references. We even got references, right? I'm going to follow up with those references, but we sat down, we went through questions, they answered the questions, they weren't afraid to give us references of Canadians who've already done that sort of thing. But what I like is that these are individuals like U.S. Properties, yourself, Paul, Josh as well, who kind of know what's going on. You kind of know the lay of the land. You're bringing in experts in those particular fields and people that can kind of guide you through the process, which I think removes a lot of the red tapes. It removes a lot of the barriers to be able to jump in and make it a lot easier. And so I would suggest to anybody. I mean, if you've got something that's parked on the side and you're waiting to get it, again, this is a buyer's market, right? This is the time to kind of get in there and do a little something. And we're going into a city like Detroit that's going through gentrification. They're going through revitalization. We saw some of that where areas that were once not so good now or on the upswing. And that really did it for me. You guys were doing presentations where you saw some major companies that were also moving into Detroit, and even off on the side, even if it wasn't just the presentation that you guys did, I knew of one particular. I think he was a pastor, and he was talking about Detroit. He lives in Detroit, and he was talking about a major gentrification that was going on down there. So I know things are booming and on the upswing there. And I thought, man, this was a good time to kind of get in and do something, especially since the down payment was so low to kind of get into the market. And if you're looking for cash flow, that's it. But one of the other things that he shared with myself when we were talking, if I can allude to this, he said, "Listen, after
Yeah.
you've been in it for a couple months or whatever, like maybe 8 months or something like that." He was saying 8 to 9 months. He said, "Hey, you can actually take equity out of that." Right, and invest in another maybe single family home. And so the turnaround to invest in another property is a lot faster, perhaps, than here. Right. One of the other things that I really love and I would encourage, and I heard him saying, like here in Canada, most of us can probably, have maybe four investment properties. You might get away with five, and then you got to get into joint venture. Right. But down there, right, it's a little bit of a different thing. So you can have five, six, seven, eight properties,
Yeah.
depending how you're setting up, without having to deal with a lot of the banking institution tying your hands. So it's a different sandbox, and it's a nice city to get to get involved with and get invested with. If you're looking to hold more properties and do more things and not limit your real estate investment plan or strategy just to Canada, right? So I would encourage folks to kind of get in because that's what we did. I love some of the things, and I saw more pluses than I saw minuses, to be honest with you, more advantages than disadvantages getting in.
That's perfect, Devon. I think people are going to find a lot of great value in this. So let's uh let's end it there. You did a great favor to people. We're gonna stop the recording and we're both gonna go out and enjoy the sunny weather again.
Absolutely, my friend. Absolutely. Thank you for having me, Paul.
All right.